first lap under green before a caution comes out, that will constitute a clean restart. It'll be considered a valid green-white checkered attempt. However, if the caution comes out before the leader passes the overtime line on the first lap under green, it will not be a valid attempt, and another attempt will be made. If necessary, okay, multiple attempts will be made until a valid attempt occurs. Once a valid attempt is achieved, it will become the only attempt at a green-white checkered finish. If a caution comes out anytime during the green-white checkered attempt, the field will be frozen, and the checkered or yellowed or checkered and red displayed to the cars at the finish line. Okay, so it goes like this. Talladega last year, you kept having people wreck on the restart. Remember the whole controversy with Kevin Harvick? Okay, so that was getting everybody arguing over what was a restart and what wasn't a restart. Because basically the cars were crossing the start-finish line on the restart. You only get 3 attempts. Oh, no, they were only doing 1 attempt at a green-white checkered at the superspeedway. This is getting really confusing. I'm confusing myself now. So NASCAR decided they were only going to attempt to do 1 green-white checkered at the superspeedways, Talladega and Daytona, because they didn't want the disaster that took place on the restart during the July Coke 0400 race when Austin Dillon went up into the catch fence, right? So instead of continuing to bunch the field up at the superspeedways, which could potentially go and create disaster, they're going to do 1 green-white checkered restart. And then at Talladega, it screwed everything up because the first restart at the end of the race, which wasn't a green-white checkered, a bunch of people wrecked on the restart. And then the first attempt at a green-white checkered, when the race got going, they wrecked again at the start-finish line. And they hadn't even entered turn 1 and 2. So with the overtime line, basically says on that green-white checkered restart, the field has to get all the way around to the overtime line on the backstretch. That would constitute a clean restart. And if they pass that overtime line, then you're into normal territory, just like what we used to do. In BMX racing, this is a better analogy. In BMX racing, it used to be that if you had 5 riders crash before the first jump, they would restart the race. It's similar to that. You got to get a whole field around to the overtime line. NASCAR always screws up with their wording. That's what kind of drives me nuts about this. It makes it more overtime. No, it should be like the clean restart line. So you restart the race and you pass this other line on the backstretch. Then you have a clean restart and we're off and running. Everybody seems to be applauding this. I'm applauding it. That way we don't end up with the ridiculousness that we got at Talladega, which ended up having that race being stole from Junior, and so they've solved that problem while confusing everybody in the process, right? Okay, let's get into the Dale Earnhardt Jr. portion of this, since it is the race preview podcast. We got a lot of new paint schemes this year. We covered a few of these, I think, at the end of last season, because we saw most of these. We still don't, let me start here with what we don't have. We still don't have the paint scheme for the Mountain Dew car yet. And I think it's partly due to the fact that it's a new paint scheme, because they've dropped the Diet Mountain Dew, and Dale Jr.'s just promoting Mountain Dew now. You can see that as an associate sponsor on his regular Axalta and Nationwide paint schemes. But also, he's only running, I think, the Diet Mountain Dew car in like 1 or 2 races this year. Or, I'm sorry, the Mountain Dew car in 1 or 2 races this year. And I also think that I'm pretty sure that Casey Kane is running one as well. So we have the Tax Slayer paint scheme, which he's running tonight for the Sprint Unlimited. And I believe that is only slated to run 1 or 2 races, this one and one other one. It's a nice-looking paint scheme, though. It's very reminiscent of the last National Guard paint scheme that he ran when he won the year he won in 2014, when he won the Daytona 500. Sort of that red, white, and blue paint scheme. Mostly red. The back end of the car is white, and then it's got gold trim on it with gold letters. I like it. And then we have the Nationwide car, which is kind of a send-up on the Gray Ghost, with the gray sides, blue lettering, and blue top to front. We have the Axalta theme, the Axalta paint scheme, which has it looks like a big stick, right? The red to kind of orangish and yellow on it. And then we have the only other paint scheme that we've really seen so far is the Batman paint scheme. There's a promotion going on with Dale Jr., partnered with Jimmy Johnson for the Batman v Superman movie coming out, right? Dawn of Justice. Dale Jr. is running the Batman paint scheme. And, it's cool. There's a lot of Batman gear, Batman Dale Jr. Gear that you can get up on the websites right now. It's kind of cool looking. It's very drab. It's all gray. It's all gray and black. Looks like Batman's outfit. It's cool. It's not the best one. I really liked the one that he did. I liked the Man of Steel paint scheme, which was the gunmetal gray with the red accents. I really liked the National Guard blue Superman car that he ran. And I really liked that Dark Knight Rises Diet Mountain Dew car that he won at Michigan with. That was cool. This car, it'll probably look good out in the sun on the track. It'll just be raced, as far as I know, at one race at Auto Club Speedway later in March. And it's all themed around Jimmy Johnson having the Superman car, and Dale Jr. has the Batman car, Batman versus Superman, this kind of thing. Apart from that, the only other paint scheme that we know we're going to get this year, well, of course, we're going to get a bunch of different paint schemes and special paint schemes. We always do. But the only other one we know for sure that we're getting is Dale Jr. at Darlington is going to run another Gray Ghost tribute scheme. He ran a Gray Ghost National Guard car, I want to say in one of his first seasons, in 2008 or 2009 at Hendrick. That was a really good-looking car. As a matter of fact, I have it. I don't have it out right now, though. It's not up on it's on my other shelf. It's on that shelf over there. Doesn't matter to you. So we're going to get a Gray Ghost paint scheme coming up at Darlington. But that, in terms of paint schemes, is all we have this year. I will say this. When it comes to merchandise, they're doing a lot better job of getting merchandise available early. If you go to either DaleJr.com or you go to NASCAR.com, they've got a bunch of new gear up. And this was better than they did. Last year was awful. They didn't have hardly anything new for the new paint schemes. This year, they really seem to be ahead of the game. There are plenty of Nationwide T-shirts available, lots of Batman gear. There's a few Axalta gear shirts available. I've already got my Nationwide and my Axalta T-shirts for this year. The Axalta one was a little bit disappointing because the graphics online were a lot brighter than they were in the shirt that I got. Melinda actually made a comment when when I pulled the shirt out, and she went, "Oh, that color scheme's really subdued." And I went, "No, that's a really, really bright car. I don't know why the colors just didn't translate onto the shirt the way that they should have." I do want to mention, though, if you're going to go and purchase stuff online, you have to go to multiple websites. This is the one thing that's consistent almost every single year, is that they don't have the same items at every single race site. So if you go to DaleJr.com, you're going to find a certain selection of stuff. But you're going to find a different variety of stuff by going to NASCAR.com. And then, oddly enough, if you go to like Raceline Direct, you're going to find even different designs. It's really strange. You would think that between, especially DaleJr.com and NASCAR.com, it would just be a carbon copy of the same stuff. And you do have some stuff that's the same, but you always find different items that on one website than you do another website. So if you're doing shopping and you want to make sure that you're looking at everything that's available, you got to go to all the different websites to do that. I mean, that's what I ended up purchasing a bunch of my 2016 gear from like 3 different websites just to cover all my bases. I am bummed out, though. I ordered some 1/64 scale diecast cars for this year, and they haven't arrived yet. Not surprised by that. I was glad that I got my T-shirts at least. The only other thing that I was bummed about was they They put up a few Tax Slayer paint scheme shirts when they first announced the paint scheme last year, and I waited, and there's no Tax Slayer stuff available right now online, so that's a bit of a bummer. All right, let's get into Speed Weeks in the race preview portion of this, and I'll keep it somewhat short here because I've gone really long on the podcast. We'll spend more time talking about Amelia next week. Amelia is the Daytona 500 car. This is the car that Dale Jr. was so dominant with last year, and they are bringing it back to the Daytona 500 this year. We're going to spend more time talking about Amelia next week because this is about the Sprint Unlimited race. I will say, if you're wondering why they call it Amelia, it's called Amelia because it's named after Amelia Earhart. And if that sounds weird, there's a very specific reason why they call it that. And again, I'm going to save that for next week's podcast because that's going to be the focus. It's going to be the Daytona 500, right? One mention before we talk about tonight's Sprint Unlimited, and that is the digital dash. All of the race cars now have digital in-car displays that they can customize instead of having the sort of the analog odometers that they had before. Now they all have these basically, like an iPad dash, and they can customize it. The one thing that I thought was really cool about it, and once we get past Daytona and we head to Atlanta and, the other regular non-restrictor plate races, I think this is going to have a huge impact because the digital dash allows the driver the opportunity to see his lap times in real time. And I think that's going to really benefit Dale Earnhardt Jr. because listening to the in-car between Dale Jr. and TJ Majors, Dale Jr. will often ask TJ to call out his lap times, or TJ will go and tell him his lap times are good. Or there'll be times when Dale Jr. will talk about how bad the car is running, and yet if you're watching at home and you're looking at the lap times, you're going, no, but the lap times are really good, though. And then you'll hear TJ go, your lap times are great. I don't think Dale Jr. believes him. And he'll end up switching lines, and you kind of go, oh, why are you switching up your line? You were going so much faster, even though it was more difficult to drive. I like the fact that Dale Jr. will have a chance to see his lap times now in real time. I think that could be a huge benefit for Dale Jr. specifically, that if he's running and the car, if he feels like he's wrecking loose or the car's not going fast, he will be able to look down and immediately see that his lap times are solid. All right, let me just take a moment and talk about tonight's Sprint Unlimited. Not a whole lot to take away from practice, except several drivers during the commentary and the coverage of practice yesterday said they thought that Dale Jr. had the fastest car on the track. Again, this is not his Daytona 500 car. This is a brand new car that they have built for tonight's race. What I'm excited about is if this car is fast, then we know that they can continue to build other fast speedway cars just like the one that they ran last year for the 500. And that's especially good if Dale Jr. ends up winning the Daytona 500 because he wouldn't be able to race Amelia the rest of the year because it would go and sit on display at Daytona. So it would be really good news to know that we've got another bullet sitting in the arsenal to go and race at Talladega and Daytona later in the year. My prediction for tonight, I think Dale Jr. wins tonight's race. I really do. That is simply just based off of everything we've seen so far, the confidence level, and how well he has been running at the super speedways. I think we walk away with a victory, and I'll even go so far as to say I think Dale Jr.'s got a good chance to sweep. That's it for the Dale Jr. Race Preview Sprint Unlimited podcast. I hope you have a fantastic time watching the race tonight. We'll be back next week to preview the Daytona 500. And until then, welcome to the 2016 season, and go Junior.
My nerd world.
And finally, for the most unusual pre-race prayers you will ever hear.
Heavenly Father, we thank you tonight for all your blessings. You said in all things give thanks. So we want to thank you tonight for these mighty machines that you've brought before us. Thank you for the Dodges and the Toyotas. Thank you for the